The RIM-161 Standard Missile-3 is a ship-based missile system used by the U.S. Navy to intercept short to intermediate-range ballistic missiles as a part of Aegis ballistic missile defense system. Although primarily designed as an anti-ballistic missile, the SM-3 has also been employed in an anti-satellite capacity against a satellite at the lower end of low Earth orbit. The SM-3 is primarily used and tested by the United States Navy and also operated by the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force. Motivation and development: the SM-3 evolved from the proven SM-2 Block 4 design. The SM-3 uses the same booster and dual-thrust rocket motor as the Block 4 missile for the first and second stages and the same steering control section and mid-course missile guidance for maneuvering in the atmosphere. To support the extended range of an exo-atmospheric intercept, additional missile thrust is provided in a new third stage for the SM-3 missile, containing a dual-pulse rocket motor for the early exo-atmospheric phase of flight. Initial work was done to adapt SM-3 for land deployment to especially accommodate the Israelis, but they then chose to pursue their own system, the NATO codename Arrow 3. A group in the Obama administration envisioned a European phased adaptive approach and SM-3 was chosen as the main vector of this effort because the competing U.S. THAAD does not have enough range and would have required too many sites in Europe to provide adequate coverage. Compared to the GMD's ground-based interceptor, however, the SM-3 Block I has about 1/5 to 1/6 of the range. A significant improvement in this respect, the SM-3 Block 2 variant widens the missile's diameter from 0.34 m to 0.53 m, making it more suitable against intermediate-range ballistic missiles. The Block IA missile is largely new, sharing only the first-stage motor with the Block I. The Block IA was designed to allow for Japan to protect against a North Korean attack with fewer deployed ships, but it is also the key element of the EPAA Phase 3 deployment in Europe. The Block IA is being jointly developed by Raytheon and Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. The latter manages the third-stage rocket motor and nose cone. The U.S. budgeted cost to date is $1.51 billion for the Block IA. Operation and performance: the ship's AN/SPY-1 radar finds the ballistic missile target and the Aegis weapon system calculates a solution on the target. When the missile is ordered to launch, the Aerojet Mk-72 solid-fuel rocket booster launches the SM-3 out of the ship's Mark 41 vertical launching system. The missile then establishes communication with the launching ship. Once the booster burns out, it detaches, and the Aerojet Mk-104 solid-fuel dual-thrust rocket motor takes over propulsion through the atmosphere. The missile continues to receive mid-course guidance information from the launching ship and is aided by GPS data. The ATK Mk-136 solid-fueled third-stage rocket motor fires after the second stage burns out, and it takes the missile above the atmosphere. The TSRM is pulse-fired and provides propulsion for the SM-3 until 30 seconds to intercept. At that point the third stage separates, and the lightweight exo-atmospheric projectile kinetic warhead begins to search for the target using pointing data from the launching ship. The Aerojet throttleable divert and attitude control system allows the kinetic warhead to maneuver in the final phase of the engagement. The KW sensors identify the target, attempt to identify the most lethal part of the target and steers the KW to that point. If the KW intercepts the target, it provides 130 megajoules of kinetic energy at the point of impact. Independent studies by some physics experts have raised some significant questions about the missile's success rate in hitting targets. In a published response, the Defense Department claimed that these findings were invalid, as the analysts used some early launches as their data, when those launches were not significant to the overall program. The DoD stated. The first tests used prototype interceptors. Expensive mock warheads were an unregistered trademark T used in the test since specific lethality capability wasn't a unregistered trademark TA test objective The objective was to hit the target missile. Contrary to the assertions of Postal and Lewis, all three tests resulted in successful target hits with the unitary ballistic missile target destroyed. This provided empirical evidence that ballistic missile intercepts could in fact be accomplished at sea using interceptors launched from Aegis ships. After successful completion of these early developmental tests, the test program progressed from just awaiting the target to one of determining lethality and proving the operationally configured Aegis SM-3 Block I and SM-3 Block 1A system. These tests were the MDAA unregistered trademark S most comprehensive and realistic test series, resulting in the Operational Test and Evaluation Force unregistered trademark S October 2008 evaluation report stating that Aegis Ballistic Missile Defense Block 043.6 system was operationally effective and suitable for transition to the Navy. Since 2002, a total of 19 SM-3 missiles have been fired in 16 different test events resulting in 16 intercepts against threat representative full-size and more challenging subscale unitary and full-size targets with separating warheads. In addition, a modified Aegis BMD SM-3 system successfully destroyed a malfunctioning U.S. satellite by hitting the satellite in the right spot to negate the hazardous fuel tank at the highest closure rate of any ballistic missile defense technology ever attempted. The authors of the SM-3 study cited only tests involving unitary targets, and chose not to cite the 5 successful intercepts in 6 attempts against separating targets, which, because of their increased speed and small size, pose a much more challenging target for the SM-3 than a much larger unitary target missile. They also did not mention the fact the system is successfully intercepting targets much smaller than probable threat missiles on a routine basis, and have attained test scores that many other Defense Department programs aspire to attain. In an October 25, 2012 test, where SM-3 Block IA failed to intercept a SRBM. In May 2013 however a SM-3 Block IB was successful against a complex, separating short-range ballistic missile target with a sophisticated separating mock warhead, making it the third straight successful test of Raytheon's SM-3 Block IB, after a target was missed on its first intercept attempt in September 2011. On October 4, 2013, an SM-3 Block IB eliminated the medium-range ballistic missile target at the highest altitude of any test to date. The test was the 26th successful intercept for the SM-3 program and the 5th back-to-back successful test of the SM-3 Block IB missile. Post-mission data showed that the intercept was slightly lower than anticipated, but the systems adjusted to ensure the missile intercepted the target. The SM-3 Block IB is expected to be delivered for service in 2015. Variants: the SM-3 Block IA version provides an incremental upgrade to improve reliability and maintainability at a reduced cost. The SM-3 Block IB, due in 2010, offers upgrades which include an advanced 2-color infrared seeker, and a 10-thruster solid throttling divert and attitude control system on the kill vehicle to give it improved capability against maneuvering ballistic missiles or warheads. Solid TDACS is a joint Raytheon-Aerojet project, but Boeing supplies some components of the kinetic warhead. With Block IB and associated ship-based upgrades, the Navy gains the ability to defend against medium-range missiles and some intermediate-range ballistic missiles. SM-3 Block II will widen the missile body to 21 in and decrease the size of the maneuvering fins. It will still fit in Mk-41 vertical launch systems, and the missile will be faster and have longer range. The SM-3 Block IIA will add a larger diameter kill vehicle that is more maneuverable, and carries another census/discrimination upgrade. ETA unregistered trademark S currently scheduled to debut around 2015. Whereupon the Navy will have a weapon that can engage some intercontinental ballistic missiles. Table sources, reference material, a further SM-3 Block IIB was conceived for fielding in Europe around 2022. In March 2013, Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel announced that the development program of the SM-3 Block IIB, also known as the Next Generation Aegis missile, was undergoing restructuring. Under-Secretary James N. Miller was quoted saying that we no longer intend to add them, SM-3 Block IIB to the mix, but we unregistered trademark LL continue to have the same number of deployed interceptors in Poland that will provide coverage for all of NATO in Europe. explaining that Poland is scheduled instead for the deployment of about 24 SM-3 interceptors same timeline, same footprint of U.S. forces to support that. A U.S. defense official was quoted saying that the SM-3 Phase 4 interceptors that we are now not going to pursue never existed other than on PowerPoints. It was a design objective. Daniel Nixon connected the backpedaling of the administration on the Block IIB development with pre-election promises made by Obama to Dmitry Medvedev. Pentagon spokesman George E. Little denied however that Russian objections played any part in the decision. Operators, United States, Missile Defense. In September 2009, President Obama announced plans to scrap plans for missile defense sites in East Europe, in favor of missile defense systems located on U.S. Navy warships. On September 18, 2009, Russian Prime Minister Putin welcomed Obama's plans for missile defense which may include stationing American Aegis armed warships in the Black Sea. This deployment began to occur that same month, with the deployment of Aegis-equipped warships with the RIM-161 SM-3 missile system, which complements the Patriot systems already deployed by American units. In February 2013, an SM-3 intercepted a test IRBM target using tracking data from a satellite for the first time. On April 23, 2014, Raytheon announced that the U.S. Navy and the Missile Defense Agency had started to deploy the SM-3 Block 1B missile operationally. The deployment starts the second phase of the phased adaptive approach adopted in 2009 to protect Europe from Iranian ballistic missile threats. Anti-satellite. On February 14, 2008, U.S. officials announced plans to use a modified SM-3 missile launched from a group of 3 ships in the North Pacific to destroy the failed American satellite USA-193 at an altitude of 130 nautical miles shortly before atmospheric re-entry, stating that the intention was to reduce the danger to human beings due to the release of toxic hydrazine fuel carried on board. A spokesperson stated that software associated with the SM-3 had been modified to enhance the chances of the missile sensors recognizing that the satellite was its target, since the missile was not designed for ASAT operations. On February 21, 2008 at 3:26 a.m., the Ticonderoga-class guided missile cruiser USS Lake Erie fired a single SM-3 missile, hit and successfully destroyed the satellite, with a closing velocity of about 22,783 mph while the satellite was 247 kilometers above the Pacific Ocean. USS Decatur, USS Russell as well as other land, air, sea and space-based sensors were involved in the operation. Japan. In December 2007, Japan conducted a successful test of an SM-3 Block IA aboard JDSA Konga against a ballistic missile. This was the first time a Japanese ship was employed to launch the interceptor missile during a test of the Aegis ballistic missile defense system. In previous tests the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force had provided tracking and communications. In November 2008 a second Japanese-American joint test was performed from JDSA Kakai which was unsuccessful. Following a failure of U-board, JFTM-3 occurred launching from JDSA Miyaka resulting in a successful intercept in October 2009. October 28, 2010 a successful test was performed from JDSA Kirishima. The U.S. Navy's Pacific Missile Range facility on Kauai launched the ballistic missile target. The crew of Kirishima, operating off the coast of Kauai, detected and tracked the target before firing a SM-3 Block IA missile. The Japanese Defense Ministry is considering allocating money in the fiscal 2015 state budget for research on introducing the ground-based SM-3. Japanese ballistic missile defense strategy involves ship-based SM-3s to intercept missiles in space, while land-based Patriot PAC-3 missiles shoot down missiles SM-3s fail to intercept. Due to concern that PAC-3s could not respond to massive numbers of missiles fired simultaneously, and that the Maritime Self-Defense Force needs Aegis destroyers for other missions, basing SM-3s on land would be able to intercept more missiles earlier. With a coverage radius of 500 km, 3 missile posts could defend all of Japan. Launch pads can be disassembled, moved to other locations, and rebuilt in 5 to 10 days. ground basing of the SM-3 is dubbed Aegis ashore. Poland. On July 3, 2010, Poland and the United States signed an amended agreement for missile defense under whose terms land-based SM-3 systems would be installed in Poland at Wojciech. This configuration was accepted as a tested and available alternative to missile interceptors that were proposed during the Bush administration but which are still under development. U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, present at the signing in Kraków W along with Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski, stressed that the missile defense program was aimed at deterring threats from Iran, and posed no challenge to Russia. As of March 2013, Poland is scheduled to host about 24 SM-3 interceptors in 2018. This deployment is part of Phase 3 of the European Phased Adaptive Approach. Romania, Indiana, 2010/2011. The U.S. government announced plans to station mobile land-based SM-3s in Romania at Dvăzelu starting in 2015, part of Phase 2 of EPAA. There are some tentative plans to upgrade them to Block IA interceptors around 2018 as well. In March 2013, a U.S. defense official was quoted saying the Romanian cycle will start out in 2015 with the SM-3IB. That system is in flight testing now and doing quite well. We are very confident it is on track and on budget, with very good test results. We are fully confident the missile we are co-developing with Japan, the SM-3IA, will have proved in flight testing, once we get to that phase. Assuming success in that flight testing, then we will have ready the option of upgrading the Romanian site to the SM-3IA, either all of the interceptor tubes or we'll have a mix. We have to make that decision. But both options will be there. The SM-3 Block IIB was considered for deployment to Romania as well, but a GAO report released February 11, 2013 found that SM-3 Block 2B interceptors launched from Romania would have difficulty engaging Iranian ICBMs launched at the United States because of unspecified Euro flight path Euro issues. Poland is a better option, but only if the interceptors can be launched early enough to hit targets in their boost phase, an engagement scenario that presents a whole new set of challenges. The best basing option is in the North Sea, but making the SM-3 Block 2B ship compatible could add significantly to its cost. The troubles of the Block IIB program however do not affect the planned Block IB deployments in Romania. Turkey. The Turkish Navy is considering the SM-3s for its upcoming TF-2000 frigate program. Instead of Aegis guidance, Turkey plans on integrating a more advanced version of Havelsan's Genesis architecture and a phased array radar built by Aselsan. Genesis is currently jointly offered with Raytheon as a C4ISR upgrade for Oliver Hazard Perry-class frigates around the world. In media, in 2012 Japanese anime movie, 009-RE. Cyborg, Zumwalt-class DDG named USS Sentinel, deployed RIM-161 Standards missiles as part of his weapon load. In the film, the Sentinel was hijacked by OO cyborgs to use the ship's anti-ballistic missile capacities to shoot down a flight of nuclear-armed intercontinental ballistic missiles launched from a rogue USS SBN. The film showcases in detail the SM-3's intercepting inbound missiles in a dramatic sequence. Gallery. See also, Arrow 3, Israel's homegrown alternative, THAAD, U.S. Army's solution, Indian Ballistic Missile Defense Program, India's two-tier ABM system. References. External links, Pros and Cons of Missile Shield in Romania 2010, U.S. Navy Fact File, Standard Missile, Designation Systems, RIM-161 Standard SM-3. GlobalSecurity.org, RIM-161 Standard SM-3, Astronautics.com, Raytheon RIM-161 Standard SM-3, Obama Shifts Gears on Missile Defense, by Cole Harvey, ArmsControl.org, October 2009.